So let's put our hand over our eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now just extend your hand over your heart and open your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that you are whole, perfect, and complete. You know, it's one of those ones that I could use every single Sunday of the year. In fact, I do say it every Sunday of the year. I say it because we need to hear it and hear it and hear it and hear it and hear it, because our natural inclination is to look at what's not whole, perfect, and complete about us. But the truth about you is that you are completely free right now. The truth about you is that you are filled with patience for your kids and other people's kids and the talking heads on TV. You are filled with patience for those people. You are filled with compassion right now. Right now, you have victory over any addiction you might have walked in here with this morning. You have victory over any fracture in any marriage or relationship you have right now. Right now, you are filled with compassion and love. That's the truth about who you are. The truth about who you are is that you have the self-confidence of Jesus that Jesus had in himself, that Buddha had, that Lao Tzu had. You have the self-confidence that you want in your life. You have relationships that are filled with passion and filled with respect for one another. That's who you are right now. So somebody in the church has got to be saying, who in the hell is she talking about? Because it isn't me. But it is you. That's the truth of who you are. See, what our work together to do is to begin to close that gap between the spiritual you and the human being you. To close that gap so you can actually feel it. See, you got that understanding that you weren't whole, perfect, and complete. You got that without your permission. You got that by how you grew up and what people told you. But now it's time for all of us to let it go. You know, we have to follow in the footsteps of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. That's a betrayal that would take us years of therapy to get over, and all kinds of classes that we'd have to go to. And then, to make matters worse, he got thrown in prison. But when he came out of prison, he became a ruler. And there are people in the church this morning who spent some time in prison. And what I want to tell you and every one of us that are in any kind of prison at all in our life, we can become rulers. Rulers over our lives, rulers over ourselves, rulers about how we want to live in this life. Well, I'm doing a series, and I'm very excited about this series. Those of you who were here 3.5 years ago, you might remember me doing this series. It's a book called The Big Leap. And here's how I feel about this book. It should be read at least once a year. You know, I tell you, you should be reading the 4 Agreements at least once a year. You should be opening your Bibles more than once a year. You should be opening your Qurans, if that's what you have, at least several times a year. To review that material. You should be looking at the sutras and the Bhagavad Gita if that's where your path came from. You should be reviewing this very often, because the information in here will stay the same. You will not. You will be changing. So if you came here and you saw, oh man, I was here I know, I read the book, okay? I read the book. All right, well, that's good. I'm glad you did, and now we're going to read it again. Because here's the thing. If you had gotten every wisdom that was in this book, I wouldn't be running golf tournaments for fundraisers. You'd have just written me a little old check. You'd have just said, here's this building, and buy 3 more if you want. I don't care. See? So I want you to stay with me as we read this material. We go through this material. It's pinned on one thing, And that is he's designed the whole premise on the notion that every one of us have only one problem in life. And that problem is called the upper limit problem. In order to take a big leap in our life, and I mean a big leap about anything. You know, sometimes we talk about manifestation in churches like this, and people think that it's kind of like going to a real estate seminar. It's just what you can get. But it's not what you can get. It's what you can get and give. Because my experience has been people who are the most generous are not the ones who are worried about how they're going to pay for their kids' food the next day or their rent that day. So we want you to be able to be manifestors in every area, but particularly the area of relationship, that deep connection, because that's what it is that we thrive upon. But this one upper limit is the glass ceiling that many of us are living under, whether it's relationships or finances or healing or being creative. We have this one glass ceiling that we can't seem to break through. And what he's saying is it's only held up by our upper limit belief. That's how we hold up this glass ceiling in our life. Here's part of what he says about person with an upper limit. I have a limited balance for feeling good. When I hit my upper limit, I manufacture thoughts that make me feel bad. The problem is bigger than just my internal feelings, though. I seem to have a limited tolerance for my life going well in general. When I hit my upper limit, I do something that stops my positive forward trajectory. I get into a conflict with my ex-wife, I get into a money bind, or I do something else that brings me back down within the bounds of my limited tolerance. Our work is to begin to break through that upper limit that we have. How many of us are truly comfortable with success? He tells a story in the book where a man had a really good idea, and he started a small business in his garage around this really good idea. And then he moved to a strip mall and got a little bigger, and his business got a little bigger. And when it maxed out at the area of the strip mall, other people started noticing how successful it was and what a very good idea it was. And so somebody offered him $3 million to buy his building, his business, and said they would keep him on as president for 2 years. And he thought that was fabulous. And so he began negotiations, and he was happy with the $3 million. And when it came time for him to have his vacation, the company's policy was that new hires got 2 weeks, and he had had a 4-week vacation. And he became so upset about the notion that he would only get a 2-week vacation that he got angry during the negotiations, and they said, "Whoa, we're going to take the deal off the table because you are way too hard to deal with. You're too erratic a person. We don't want to be in business with you." Well, later, he lost the deal. Later, when he began to read this book and work with the author around upper limit problems, he began to see that what he did was he didn't feel he was worthy of $3 million. And so he created some reason for him not to have the $3 million. You and I, we do this all the time in smaller areas, in smaller measures in our life. We get just to that point, and then we create some problem that exists that we can't have it. We often do it with friendships. We do it with love relationships. We do it with career opportunities. We get just there, and because we don't think we're worthy, we've hit our upper limit, we take ourselves back down. If we can really, we don't even ask the question, what would it be like if life was good all of the time? See, we don't even ask that question anymore because we're so invested in taking the bad with the good. We're so invested with it that we start campaigning for our limitations. I want to read you something every one of you, I bet, in this room has heard. And I want you to really listen to it with a beginner's mind. It's a little part of a speech written by Marianne Williamson that was given at Nelson Mandela's inauguration. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be so brilliant, so gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So that when we can crash through our upper limit in our life, and if we can make CSA ground zero for 500 people crashing through their upper limits, all we're going to do is not only bless ourselves, but we're going to bless all of the people who come in contact with us. But if we begin to, if we continue to look around at the evidence of why we can't break through our upper limit, we will always find that evidence to be so. It's everywhere. There's a story in the book in which, I don't know if it was in the book or I heard it somewhere else, but it's somewhere in the planet. and that is this. When the steam engine was first brought on the planet, the scientists around the steam engine said, look, the steam engine's fine. It's great. It's a great invention. It's going to help travel, but never take it over 30 miles an hour. Because if human beings go past 30 miles an hour, they will explode. See? Fortunately, some brave soul says, well, that's ridiculous. And now we can, if we want to go on the internet, buy outer space and really go fast, and we're not going to explode. But that's what happens. There's so much around there that will tell us that we can't push past. Jackie Robinson, he pushed past what was possible. Hillary Clinton, she pushed past when she ran for president what was thought possible for a woman to do. See, we have to be able to push past that. I hope all of you are part of our Facebook. Not the CSA Facebook, but the Center for Spiritual Awareness Facebook. Because we're putting lots of wonderful things that will uplift you during the week if you're Facebook people. And my Donna tells me everybody's a Facebook person, so okay, everybody should get on it, okay? All right. No, not everybody. No, I knew you wouldn't be. Somehow I knew you would not be, Azana. All right, but whether you are or not, get on and go to Center for Spiritual Awareness, the Facebook. And last week I posted a thing called for a TED Talk. And TED Talks are people from all walks of life are invited to share wisdoms. And in this TED Talk, this young woman was working with little girls, 8 to 12 years old. And she was trying to get them to, plan things and do things and kind of take them. They were disadvantaged kids and kind of uplift them. And so she said to them, well, what do you want to do? And they were trying to think of what they wanted to do. And one little girl, unrelated to the discussion, said, I am so sick of my father always calling me. He's always calling me and always telling me what to do. And a couple other kids said, you know what? I would love it if my dad called me at all. And so from that, they said, you know what we'd really like to do, the little girls said? We'd like to have a father-daughter dance and dress up in our best clothes and have our fathers come to the dance. And one little girl said, well, I guess that's okay, but I can't come. And they said, why not? And she said, because my dad's in prison, and I don't think they're going to let him out to come to the father-daughter dance. And so the little girls said this. They said, you know what? We're going to take our dance to your dad's prison. And And the teacher, the lady that was working with him, said, she didn't discourage him. She said, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to let us do that. And she went to the warden and she asked, and he was open to it. And these little girls got in their little best dresses, and they took their own dads. And then they asked the prison allowed the dads in the prison to ask, if they had little girls between that age, to come to the father-daughter dance. And they had a big father-daughter dance in the prison with little girls and their dads. And what they said was, the warden said, is that the men were so much easier to work with after that experience. Now, what happened? These little girls had no upper limit. They didn't care about anything. They just wanted to have their dance with some dads. And that's what we have to do. We have to begin to push through the evidence. Everybody has an upper limit a problem, whatever that is and whatever level it is. But you know who didn't have an upper limit problem? Was Jesus. Do you remember me telling you the story? Those of you who are not Christians, I've told the story several times because it makes me so mad that they didn't count women then. But that Jesus fed 5,000 men when there was no food. And they didn't say it, but all the wives too. So I know I can't let it go. So, but here's what he didn't say. Here's what Jesus didn't say. He looked at those 5,000 people and he didn't say, look, you got the workshop for free. Why didn't you bring your lunch? No, he didn't say that. He said, of course. And he looked, the Bible says, look to the heavens, which means he looked to his highest self. And he was able to find out how to give them a lovely fish lunch. Okay? And he did that because he had no upper limit. Didn't matter what the evidence was. And that's what the point of this book is here. Most of us don't understand that we think we're flawed. We don't understand we have an upper limit. That's why I'm so excited about this book. We think that we're not doing well. We're right on the verge of moving into our achievement, and we stop ourselves, or we say something stopped us. We had bad luck or bad timing, or our hair wasn't just right, or whatever it is. We have an excuse for it. But truthfully, what it is the upper limit problem, and we can begin to work with that. See, it's like having a thermostat. And we have a thermostat that's just set. It's different for each one of us. Some of us have a higher thermostat. Some of us have ourselves thermostat at a lower level. And what we need to do is keep, what the book says, is keep turning the thermostat up to a higher level. I say, let's just take the thermostat off the wall and not have it at all. See? So that we can begin to see how we've trapped ourselves. See, what happens is we make a little progress in money, in love, in career, in projects, in creativity, in patience, in whatever it is we're trying to make a little progress for. And then when we hit what we call a snag, we say there's something wrong with us. Or that evil twin, that's what I call the opposite of your still small voice, your evil twin voice. It comes and says, what made you think you could be rich? What made you think you could do this? What made you think you could have a happy love relationship? That's just a voice that doesn't even belong in our head. And we unconsciously, when we hear that voice, then we unconsciously turn the thermostat back down. Oh, we got so far, but we created some havoc, so let's make ourselves a little smaller here. That's what Anthony Weiner did. He had a great political career. He's one of my favorite politicians. And he got just to a place, and then he had to create some havoc in his life. That's what the mayor of San Diego, he got just to a successful place, and the author would say he got there, and he created havoc because he had to turn his thermostat back down. Charlie Sheen gets just to a place, he has to create havoc. Lindsay Lohan, create havoc. They got to a certain place of their upper limit, and they had to turn it back down by creating havoc. A lot of our drama, yours and my drama in our life, much less than that, but a drama nonetheless, we create because we've reached our upper limit and now we're working ourselves back down. So we're going to work with this all month. So we get to recognize what is our upper limit, how do we see it, and how do we turn it up before the havoc starts, before we have to come back down in our lives. Well, he says this, just to start us off, to get us grounded. He said, there are 4 areas that we operate in, and we need to stop operating in them. One is our zone of incompetence. A lot of us don't spend much time in our zone of incompetence, but we often go there when we don't need to go there. How many of us in this room, don't raise your hands, have spent Christmas Eve trying to put a toy together, a bicycle or something together that we had no skill in doing, when we could have paid the person $25 at the store to put it together for us, but we thought we had to do it because money was tight. Well, our nerves were much tighter on Christmas Eve than that money was, but we were in our zone of incompetence. And then, for me, I used to try and work with the web page. I should not be working with the web page. It's my zone of incompetence. And fortunately, we have Rosie now who does all of that. I just have to write the content, and she puts it up there. Then he says, we want you to leave your zone of incompetence, and we want you to leave your zone of competence. We don't want you in your zone of competence. That's the zone in which you do things pretty well, but other people do them equally well. And we want you to get out of that. He says this. He said most physical illnesses that we create in our body come from us living in our zone of competence. That's that zone in which Moses was. He was a good sheep herder. Nothing wrong with his sheep herding abilities. But God had something much bigger for him to do. And so he made it clear that Moses needed to do that. We need to be listening to the presence of God to what we need to do to get out of our zone of competence. But he says this even. He says, I don't even want you in your zone of excellence. Your zone of excellence are those things that you do really, really well. And people around you are invested in you in staying in that zone of excellence because they're benefiting from you being in that zone of excellence. They're either getting money or prestige or stability or something, and you're in your zone of excellence. And what Hendricks says is, get out. Get out. It's very seductive, but you will never know your upper limit if you stay in your zone of excellence. He says you must get into your zone of genius. Your zone of genius. And every one of us have a zone of genius where we know we're whole, perfect, and complete. And we stay there. And we work from that area. We work from no barrier to possibilities. That's what visioning is that we do in this church. Visioning is taking us into our zone of genius. That's what meditation and contemplation does. It takes you into your zone of genius. Just that thing that bubbles up that says, yes. See, I know that I'm a good administrator of this church. I know that. That's my zone of excellence. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, you want me out of there. Because my zone of genius is envisioning, is being a visionary for what we can do. Being a visionary for what we can do as a community and as individuals to move these teachings forward. Every one of you have a zone of genius. And we're going to get you there by the end of 4 weeks. Now look, keep coming. Keep coming back. Don't think that because you read, don't think that. No. Remember, you want to come back every week. He says, look, we're not going to break through the glass ceiling. By the way, the problem with the glass ceiling is that you can see on the other side of it. See? You can see it, but you can't see yourself on the other side of it. That's the problem with glass ceilings. And what he says is, we're not going to break this glass ceiling. We're going to dissolve it. We're going to dissolve it. So we're going to go through this book and dissolve our glass ceilings, reset our upper limit so it's not even the sky's the limit for us. So let's take this into prayer, knowing that we are in the power and the love and the glory of God. That one presence that is pure, pure love, that it is in and around and through us. It heals all. That love heals all. It heals difficult relationships with teenagers. It heals difficult relationships with co-workers. It just heals everything, makes it better. Love. I give thanks for this. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.